This Week in Startups is brought to you by Peloton. Bring an immersive, empowering, heart-pounding cardio experience to your own home. Go to onepeloton.com and use promo code TWIST to get $100 off of accessories when you purchase the Peloton bike. That's OnePeloton.com and use promo code TWIST. LinkedIn. You need LinkedIn Jobs to find the right people for your business. Post a job today at linkedin.com/twist and get $50 off your first job post. And 8 Sleep, the first bed engineered to improve your sleep through dynamic cooling and heating, detailed sleep tracking, and more. Try the pod for free for 100 days at 8sleep.com/twist. Upcoming launch events. Apply for open office hours with Jason on Monday, August 26th. Get candid feedback with the potential to be featured on This Week in Startups. Apply at officehours.launch.co. Get your free founder pass or purchase a VIP ticket for Launch Scale in San Francisco, October 7th and 8th at launchscale.net/tickets.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm here in Los Angeles, my second hometown, where I spent a decade of my life building companies and investing in companies. And I decided to meet with some great entrepreneurs here at NetSuite's studio in Santa Monica. Thanks to my friends at NetSuite for allowing me to use their studio. That was really helpful. And my guest today, Alvina Beck, is the co-founder and CEO of PodShare, Podshare. Now, before you think this is a social network for sharing podcasts, no, it is a real estate startup that allows people to live in pods for a fraction of what the rent would be in a major city. Did I describe it correctly?
That's right.
Alvina?
Yes.
How did you come up with this idea, and how many people do you have living in pods?
So the only one thing to add is that it's membership, meaning it's like a gym membership for housing. So if you are purchasing a pod for a night, a week, a month, you actually have access daytime and nighttime transfers across the network of locations. So as our network grows, so does your access.
Got it. How many pods do you currently have in how many cities? Yeah.
So we have 220 pods across Los Angeles and then one in San Francisco now.
Oh, wow.
And there's 7 locations. And you have to think of it as more of like a neighborhood version, like a micro look at neighborhoods where each pod shares anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 square feet across different neighborhoods. So we have Downtown Arts District, Los Feliz, Hollywood and Vine, Westwood, Venice, and in San Francisco, it's on Post and Hyde. Think of it as places that are unaffordable, so we're at a 50% discount to share.
So in Los Angeles, what does it cost to have a pod membership?
$50 a night, $280 a week, or $1,000 a month.
So for $12,000 a year,
yeah,
I can live in any one of those 6 or 7 locations.
Yep.
And do people actually move from location to location night by night?
Not by night. They basically are apartment hunting. And so they're like, let me figure out if this is the neighborhood for me, or they're job hunting. So they don't want to commit to that annual lease. And then they're also roommate hunting. So they don't want to find them online. They find them in person. So like, oh, you and I would get along. You wake up early. I do too. You're relatively clean. Let's go get an apartment together. And it's usually within a 3-mile radius. So it's like a try before you buy model.
So are people using it for also maybe staying for an extended period of time? Like, you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, I think.
Actually, since 2012 we started, but really in the last 4 years is when we really ramped it up 300%. The first few years I was, just only had one location, and it was really hard to convince the city and convince landlords and convince people to share. The sharing economy really helped dive that concept in, like going into people's random cars and going to people's random homes have been allowed, like now group housing. Let's give up something but gain price and location. So about 75% of the 220 people are over a month. Right now, like today speaking, there's like an 85% occupancy, and of those 220 beds, we have a pretty good male-female ratio. It's like 54-46. Like,
and are the people typically young people new to the city, or because I watched one of your videos and it seemed like there were some 30 or 40-year-olds also using it, which I thought was either strange or interesting, or...
Well, 35% of millennials are living with mom and dad. So in order to get out of mom and dad's house, they'd love to live in the city, but how do they afford it? So if you think about like just moving into a new place, so around 27 to 32 is our average, to answer your question. But like if you're moving to the city and let's say you had like $7,000 is what they recommend, and you're looking for an apartment, you don't have a job yet, so you're like living off that $7,000. If you're spending $100 a night on looking for a place, you're really going to tap into that security deposit really quickly. But if $1,000 can get you a month, you can spend a lot more time finding that right place, that right person, and get a job.
And what is the equivalent if somebody was going to get a studio apartment in these locations?
Has to be 50% more, so around 2,200 to 2,600, and then in San Francisco is even higher. You're like 3,500 for a bedroom.
Wow.
Yeah, you're really expensive there.
And so you said before, like you're giving up something.
Yeah.
You're giving up your privacy?
That's right. That's right. We have a triangle, and it's cost, neighborhood, or privacy. And pick two. What would you pick?
Yeah, I would pick privacy
and you would and get the
neighborhood.
Best. Yeah. Oh, you would pick privacy, and that means high cost. Or
yeah, I don't care. But when I was younger, I actually lived in my office at Sony.
There you go.
And there was a gym downstairs, and I would sleep over in my office under the desk. I had a windowless office. It was basically a broom closet that I could sleep in. And I would go to the gym 3 days a week and take a shower down there.
Wow.
And
you're a demographic. This is what we have. Yeah. We have a day pass, which is $15 from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. People living in their cars, going to the gym and coming to PodShare to basically either shower, use the Wi-Fi, eat our food. It's so
really? Have day passes for that too. Fascinating.
Living in their cars.
So people are giving up a little bit of privacy, saving a lot of money, and getting a great location. Now, are they also there because they want to be part of a community and they're lonely? And then just at a technical basis, I've seen the video, but describe for people what the living arrangement looks like and why you designed it as such.
Yeah, so we're definitely different. A lot of co-living startups have really popped up in the last couple of years, and we definitely look different than them. So we take commercial buildings, that's like the kicker here, and we change the use to some sort of group housing use. And then we use the height in those commercial spaces to do double-decker pods, which are like you take a stairway to the second level, and you have 5-foot clearance downstairs, and you have 5-foot clearance upstairs. So you're not like crawling in or using a ladder. You're comfortably getting up there, and you have a flat screen, you got your personal outlets, and you have your nightlight. And we think those are kind of the essentials to share. And otherwise, everything else is common areas. So even though you have 50 square feet to yourself, really, how big is your bed? And everything else is breakout space. You got a stocked kitchen, utilities are paid for, no security deposit. You got parking in some, you got a huge yard in the others, you got amenities, and you got friends, to your point.
Now, these pods, they're basically a bed that are about 4 or 5 feet high. Mm-hmm. You can keep some stuff in there. There's a shelf. There's a TV. Mm-hmm. Is there a door that closes? Because when we think pod, I think about Japan where they have pod hotels. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that was your inspiration.
No. Well, okay, it's funny, right? Because the word pod, right?
Yeah. But those close and you enter them like feet first.
Exactly.
Like they're kind of, I don't know if they'd be vertical, not horizontal. Yours are horizontal.
But doesn't that kind of remind you of like a veterinary clinic or like a morgue? Like what
it's
do you
sort of morgue-esque,
It is, right? It's not community. So when you think about a community, you think like of a circle. You think inclusatory. So on pods, you write your name on it, and everybody faces each other. So you really get to know people.
But you don't close the door.
You don't close the door.
Do you have a curtain?
We don't even do curtains because it's a co-ed space. It is like a no privacy, and the reason is so we have a rate of collision, we call it. It's like the rate at which you and I make eye contact. We meet. We grab a cup of coffee. Like the rate of collision is much higher at a PodShare than it would be at a micro unit or an apartment building or a home, because there's just a lot less privacy, frankly.
So if I'm going to sleep, I'm going to wake up, and the person across from me on the bunk is going to be doing what you're doing right now, is looking at me and smiling. And we're going to be like looking at each other when I wake up.
Good morning.
Good morning. And that's basically, but you could slide and build like a door or like a screen, like a Japanese, rice paper type screen. Yeah. But you don't.
We don't. And it's a choice, right? Because you're right. We're building these custom. I go to Home Depot. I load up the lumber. I get it delivered. I get plywood from I could. It's super easy.
You decided not to.
I decided not to, and I still decide not to.
Really? And people ask, is that like the number one ask? Can my pod close?
Yeah. Well, they ask. They're like, why do you choose not to put privacy? And it's almost become like a sticking point. So I kind of appreciate it. But it's co-ed, right? Yeah. And when I did a test, and I was like, I don't have all the answers. I just throw stuff out and see if it. I watch the people. I live in PodShares too, by the way. It's my main domicile. And when I see people like tenting, essentially putting a curtain over the top, there's such a higher risk of two people like hooking up, and that's great, but it's really inappropriate for like everybody else in the room, or like an individual person like behaving like inappropriately.
All right, well, you went there.
Yeah, I went there, and it wasn't.
You went there.
It wasn't clean.
Okay, hold on a second. So, people are young people.
Yes.
Maybe even older people might hook up, have sex. What is the rule in PodShare? Is sex allowed?
No pod sex.
No pod sex.
No pot sex.
So if you're coming to PodShare, you're going to be abstaining.
Yes, unless you go Tinder, go to someone else's house, or
Got it.
Bumble.
And what do people think of that? And do people break that rule? And then you've had people break the rule.
And then they're out.
Really? You kick them out?
Absolutely. Hands down. You sign a terms of use that basically says, like, more or less no hanky-panky. You just don't break our rules. Because it's inappropriate. But not to say that we're against it. I honestly...
So you're not against sex?
Not against sex, but right place, right time.
Got it.
And again, it goes back to the triangle. You want to pay cost? You want to get great neighborhood? You got to give up privacy.
Right.
Unless you have all the money in the world, then you get all three of them.
Right.
And it's called a hotel room, or it's called an apartment, a one bedroom, maybe a two.
Got it. So you're converting like lofts and commercial space? Is that right?
Like I did a marijuana dispensary. I'm doing a karate shop right now. Yesterday, I just got note that Santa Monica is letting me put group housing in a 3,000 square foot commercial, like warehouse looking building. So I'm having a lot of fun with the cities pitching why group housing is what they should allow in their cities. Not just, apartment buildings where it's like a large building and there's a hallway and it's room. I'm saying one large open room with people.
Are you looking for new ways to get in your cardio on your very busy schedule? Well, you know what to do. You need to get a Peloton. It is the best cardio machine on the planet. The Peloton bike will make you rethink how you look at cycling classes. It's immersive, it's empowering, it's heart-pounding cardio experience that's going to get you in world-class shape thanks to their world-class instructors and that real-time motivation and having all that convenience of having it in your home. No driving to a gym, no trying to find parking, no delays, no cost. Nope, you wake up, you roll out of bed, you get a little hour in between phone calls, half hour, you can just go and sort through all the different courses and all the different instructors and find either a live one or you can get one that's been taped already and do it on your own schedule. And you get that class leaderboard. So if you're a little competitive like I am, you can see yourself moving up and down as you are motivated to compete with not only yourself, but everyone else. Oh, it's so much fun. And you wear that nice heart rate band so you know how you're doing, and it tracks calories and resistance and cadence and output, all that great stuff. I just love to look at the heart rate myself. It is a great cardio workout, unlike any other stationary bike. You have to get a Peloton. I love it. You're going to love it. And here is a great limited time offer. Go to onepeloton.com and use the promo code TWIST, ONEPELOTON.com, and use that promo code TWIST to get the $100 in accessories. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. So the city of Santa Monica or Venice, they know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. This is not like you're doing this on the slide.
No.
Or maybe in the beginning you did.
Everyone does in the beginning. Yeah. Even Uber wasn't legal, right? And it's still kind of...
I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, we had everything buttoned up.
Scooters, everything kind of disrupts one way or another.
So, but the cities like it.
Yes.
They're embracing it?
Because it's an affordable housing. Group housing is an affordable housing measure because when you break up $1,000 a month into flexible payments, people can afford it more. So if you don't have a G, you just go $280 and then you figure out 3 weeks in, where can I get the rest of that money? You know what I mean? Another point to the privacy question, I envision PodShare. Remember, it's group housing right now, but I actually envision it also allowing like a more private portion. You just have to pay a little more. And I imagine tiny homes being a part of the network.
Got it.
But right now, it's the reason why PodShare is important. You pay 2 rents when you travel. So you're here in LA right now, but you're paying for SF, right?
Yeah.
So you're paying 2 rents. What if you could transfer your rent? What if you were living in a housing network that wasn't just pods, it was also micro units and it was also tiny homes, but you could transfer your physical and you can leave your stuff in a storage somewhere there.
Yes, so there's no waste. So if I was living in the San Francisco pod and I went to New York for 3 weeks, I would pack up my stuff, take it out of my pod, put it in a locker or in the basement, locked up.
Exactly.
And people want to not have possessions. Is that the other thing?
Access, not ownership. Exactly. Like there's things that like, do you need your own iron? Do you need your own washing machine? Can you share the toothpaste? Can you share the hairdryer? Like there's just
I'm going to go with my own toothbrush.
Yes, you could go with that.
But I would share the toothpaste. Yes.
And the body wash and the toilet paper. I mean, these are things you don't have to worry about. There's a fixed cost to housing with PodShare. And just the question of where do you want to be is the question.
Is this profitable for you or is it a nonprofit? Is it a business or is it a passion project?
It's definitely a lifestyle brand, as you would call it, and a passion project, but it's definitely a profitable one. Right. I'm self-funded this whole time.
I know that. That was super interesting. You have self-funded this. to this point.
To this point.
You did a Kickstarter for 20 or 30 grand with
Yeah, it was 30K. Just
amazing video.
It was satire, guys.
It was satire.
Some of the comments are like, I can't believe she's sharing a toothbrush. And it's like, we took sharing to the extreme in that video. It was a joke.
Right.
But yeah.
like a Dollar Shave Club inspired.
Thank you.
A hilarious video. Inappropriate at times. It was a little racy.
Yeah, it was racy for sure.
Yeah.
I think you have to be occasionally when you call something out like this. But no, to your point, yeah, I self-funded and then I crowdfunded and then I got a private debt and then I got bank debt and then I've just been self-funding it off the profits.
So where do you see this going in 5 or 10 years if you keep up at this pace? You said you had 6 locations?
Yeah, I have 6. I do like 2 a year.
So you do 2 a year.
Yeah.
So in 5 years at this pace, you would have like almost 20 locations or so, which means you would triple the number of pods. You'd have 600 or 700 pod people. Where do you see it going? Do you see yourself raising venture capital and making this like a competitor to WeWork and WeLive? And what do you think of what they're doing? Are they competitive or not?
So I'm totally open to venture or PE or a syndicate for real estate. I think all of that is really interesting. To this point, it's been like it's marriage, right? And it has to be a right fit. I've been really hands-on. Like I said, I live in the pods and my team lives in the pods. It's really important that whoever does join our journey like really believes in it and would actually spend the night there. Doesn't have to live there, but just like understand what we're doing. And so that money also has trust in it and trust in what I've been doing. And I think the point of not taking it for all this time was to prove my worth and my knowledge in this field. An idea would be like franchising sub-markets, not the main markets, not the Chicago, not the Miamis, not the Bostons, but I mean like franchising just the little towns or places that like Joe and Jane's can run themselves, whether they're retirees or post-grads. A lot of people don't want 9-to-5 jobs, and this is a great way to run a pod share, make awesome money off
so
of
a
it.
franchise could be an interesting
For
model.
sub-markets, though.
For sub-markets.
I think we, as HQ, whether it's with venture or with a real estate fund, I think we tackle the harder places where, but the smaller places, I think it's a great empowerment.
Have you been to Tony Hsieh's trailer park in...
Oh, Tony Hsieh. Yes,
Yeah,
I have.
from
It's Tony
Zappos.
Robbins. Yes,
Yeah.
I have. It's really cool. That's
I've
exactly,
stayed there like 3 times, 4 times maybe.
Imagine that's the third tier of the community.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I think, model where he's got a bunch of Airstreams and tiny homes on an old parking lot.
Yeah, I've been there. Super cool.
And it's kind of fun because you stay and you have your own private space, but then you can go out and, sit by a fire pit and meet a bunch of people and
Exactly.
play, cards or, Scrabble.
Exactly. But imagine you can then take that park and put it in on the East Coast or maybe another country. And again, you just pack up your stuff and you have unlimited transfers across a housing network.
Are you putting your inventory on like the Airbnbs of the world?
Of the world, OTAs, they call them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you put them on those?
Yeah,
And do you get
absolutely.
people who are, just in town for 3 days, staying for 3 days for $50 a night?
Yeah, they do. And it's a short-term and a long-term play, which helps both. I mean, in one case, new money gets brought into new local businesses. And then on the other case, long-term people, they can't stay in hostels because they kick them out after 3 weeks and they don't take locals. So I definitely have like someone from Venice, for example, right now getting his house painted and he's been with us for 3 weeks as an example. But
hostels only allow you to stay for 3 weeks.
in America.
Is that a law in America or is it just a tradition?
It seems to like they want that traveler. They want the traveler. They are
Got it.
specific about what they're interested in and they don't want you living there.
Got it.
But we do. We want shared housing to break down walls, literally, like the isms and the phobias. We think by bringing people together in small spaces, we're actually going to be less bigots.
What about the co-ed nature of this? Have you, because we have now gender-specific co-working spaces. You've got people sleeping
wing.
and living, like the wing is is
WeHo
a
now.
female. Actually, I guess you can't say female only because they got sued for being female only.
Gotcha.
And now they're have men.
What's the equitable part is what you're talking about. So I'm a co-ed space because it's males and females, first come, first serve. It's very equitable. It's not like her room is bigger or his room has a better view.
Right, but people don't want to have women on one side and men on the other, or has that request
They can
come
choose
in?
it. One thing I've been kind of toying with and I really want to put on the internet is like the name, just like the first name, gender, where you're from, and maybe occupation of every person that's checked into a pod share so you can make smarter booking decisions. Just small data. But then you can say, I don't want to go to that pod share because it's like 90% males. Or I don't want to go there because it's like 90% Australians and I'm from Australia.
Yeah.
Something like a little bit of data around your booking decision because you're not getting that right now off of Airbnb or off Kayak or off of Craigslist. You don't really know who's in the space. And it's not, I don't think, a privacy concern because it doesn't give a surname, a personal information. It just says, here's John.
Yeah.
John's from America.
It seems like Airbnb's biggest hurdle early on was getting people, and you sort of alluded to this originally, to get used to the concept of renting somebody's, renting somebody's extra, whatever, loft, bedroom, guest house. And security was the main issue. Mm-hmm. It seems here security would be even a bigger issue.
Actually,
or
the
not.
opposite. Yeah, opposite. So when you go into a room, that's when you can rummage through people's stuff. That's when there's one exit. You close that door and you're like screwed, literally. With Podshare, you always have 2 points of exit, and you have so many eyewitnesses and RAs that live on site that one yelp and you're like, what happened? What's going on? Not to mention, actually, someone had a seizure for the first time, and it wasn't even staff that jumped in. It was the other pedestrians that were like, are you okay? Let's put you on the side. I happen to be a nurse. And they actually helped him because they could see him. Imagine there was a curtain there and he could be, having a seizure behind a closed, and we couldn't help him because we just didn't know.
Got it.
So I think safety is in large numbers, and in a Podshare model, it's safer than a room that someone can go behind and hurt you in.
I actually buy that argument. I think that makes total sense. You put cameras in the shared areas too?
Shared only, not the private bedrooms, because that's illegal.
That would be very bad.
But in the common rooms, absolutely. So you can't bring anyone home. It's members only.
Got it. And so you have RAs there.
Yes. And to your point about, boarding houses are 100 years old and also founded by female, just little tidbit.
Yeah.
In the 20s in Chicago, in the 1910s and 1920s, there was 2,400 women that were just coming to Chicago to be like working at department stores or clerical offices. And they were pre-marriage. They were just coming in for a few years to get some independence. Right. And they were staying in these boarding houses.
Right.
So it's kind of funny that we're using the boarding house use in the code, in the zoning code and group housing. And it's funny that we're female founded. This was something JSTAR just did an article combining Podshare with the Eleanor Club, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know this piece of history.
That's interesting. I knew somebody who lived in a women's only residency in New York off Gramercy Park, and I was like, this is the most expensive real estate. It was right on the corner of Gramercy Park in Manhattan, and I walked her home one night. We had a group of us gone, and she was actually embarrassed that she lived there.
Really?
And I was like, tell me everything. I'm super fascinated. And she's like, yeah, it's only this amount of money, but it was only women, and it might have been the Eleanor Club. It might have been if that was in multiple cities.
And it was philanthropic, so they were able to charge very little. And the point of the argument was like, well, Podshare is for profit, so they have to they can't really charge these little prices like this woman was paying. As much as we want to. We're renting at market rates. So our hands are tied.
What's the worst thing you've had to deal with then? Like, have you had any people get crazy or?
No, the worst things I had to deal with isn't even crazy because you can literally, they call the police on them or point to the terms of use, give them their money back and ask them to leave. The worst part is when someone says, I can't pay the rent. Can I pay tomorrow or can I pay next week? And actually this happened yesterday, but this happened how do you look someone in the face and say, I'm sorry, but we don't take IOUs because we've been burned so many times. But there are such low-income individuals living amongst these people that are traveling with fine, incomes. And it's like the have and the have-nots. And your heart breaks when they tell you, I don't have any money. Like, if you don't let me do this, I have to go on the streets. And you're like, oh, my God.
Right. You don't want to be a homeless shelter, but it would seem that there is a transition out of actually homelessness that Podshare would actually be good for.
Absolutely. We're talking to a nonprofit about that, like using the pods, because right now cots is like the only thing they're using, or maybe something like bunk beds, but you're wasting all this extra space. Podshare, we could do double or triple decker even. Pods with a stairway that goes up. In our design, every 50 square feet can fit 2 to 3 people in a dignified way, not like sardine cans or these cages we're talking about. And
Get ready to be hated, because literally a bunch
it's temporary.
Well, here's the thing. No good deed goes unpunished, and you have a hysterical mob of
dystopian accusations.
Well, there's a whole dystopian thing that you have to deal with. We'll get into that. But if you actually presented what you're doing for homeless people and helping them transition out, you would be by a certain contingent of hysterical liberals on Twitter, and I'm a libertarian/liberal, but I'm not part of the hysterical group, who would literally attack you and say, how dare you force homeless people to sleep in pods?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, okay, because right now I've got hipsters and professionals
paying for it.
And yuppies doing it.
Yeah.
But if I were to do it with homeless individuals and helping them transition, people would literally rain fire on you.
It's true.
And you should ignore them.
Yeah, thank you.
But you've done a pretty good job because you seem like kind of a badass. You remind me, we had Sophia Amorosa in that chair just a couple of days ago. You kind of remind me of her in that you don't give an F, do you?
No, I just have a goal and I'm gonna just reach it until my last breath, essentially.
Yeah, you seem to just not care about other people's opinion of what you're doing. Am I right?
I think it's a good mission, and I have no apologies for it.
You get criticized pretty consistently from what I see.
Yes, you do.
People are like, this is
mean.
dystopian. And I just thought, well, wait a second. Then does that mean every college dorm room is dystopian? Or when you go skiing, every ski house has a bunk room so you can fit more people to go skiing?
Yeah.
Is this dystopian? And how do you respond to the idiots and maniacs on Twitter? Or do you just not even respond?
No, I do. I respond to all of them, in fact. And then my team says, stop. And I said, no, because I believe in this mission. I'm going to defend myself. And I think this is, and if you just let them keep talking, I feel like they think they're right. But if you say you're wrong and here's why, I feel like maybe they'll stop talking. And they have. So the question of dystopia, I always say, look, we're a byproduct of high rents. People, I don't know if they're upset about the double-decker pods or if they're upset about how much they cost. Meaning, if the pods were not $1,000 a month, I think people would be much more comfortable with them.
Right.
And I wish they were. But the problem is that I'm paying anywhere from $3 to $6 a square foot.
Right, because you're in the most expensive places.
Exactly. So what am I supposed to do? I'm not a nonprofit. I am self-funded, and I have costs.
Right. And it's not like you're making some killing on this.
No, come on. If I was, I'd be buying a bunch of real estate. So far, we don't own anything.
Right.
We're trying on an SBA loan, though. So it's like we're super grassroots, and it kind of does suck to be like attacked when you're like female immigrant living in her place. Just trying to do like I'm living in them because I want more of these in the world, and they're like attacking you like you're someone said we were venture backed, and I was just like a ploy, like I was just here as like a face, but then there's a bunch of money behind me, and
you might be venture backed after this episode because I am fascinated with solving housing. We have an investment in a company called Blockable, that is doing modular housing, and they hope to build developments that could be low income for homeless people transitioning out of poverty, and then also people who want just a dope ass starter home, all of that, and they're developers. And I'm looking at what you're doing and I'm wondering,
put in the membership. Is there any way to put Blockable in a housing membership?
Well, yeah, that would be interesting. But also, I think you've got it right. What if you had one of these that was, 5 train stations out of the center of the city? So right now it's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
If there was one that the rent was 1/3.
That's the franchise submarket idea.
Yeah.
I think we have different strokes for different folks.
Right.
And you want to pay $500 a month, go to those franchise submarkets, or we do them ourselves, and the land will be cheap, and it's a McDonald's version of a franchise.
I think that's could be the big win for you, because then you would have people who would say, you know what, I want to spend $1,000 and walk to work in San Francisco, or I want to do it in Alameda or Oakland, or somewhere outside of the city center and pay half.
Yeah. And that's where we probably need venture, because we only have the bandwidth for the big ones right now. But if we had a bunch of money, we can hire the operators, or again, the franchise model means we don't have to have a lot of money. They're paying us royalties and commissions to basically go do it themselves. So basically more income would be, because I only have so many hours in the day, and I'm going to focus on SF, LA, Prime as the
hiring somebody for a job. It's not as easy as just putting an ad in the paper or putting a job description on some rando job board. You don't want those kind of candidates anyway. No, when you're growing your business, you need to reach the right candidates at the right time, and that's where LinkedIn comes in. You know LinkedIn, I know LinkedIn. We're on it all day long. I love sharing my clips of my podcast on LinkedIn. I love reading the news on LinkedIn, the social feed. I get so much great information on LinkedIn. That's why 600 million members visit LinkedIn all the time. They get the connections over there. They go there to learn as a professional and discover new job opportunities, obviously. And there's all those passive job seekers. Maybe they're looking, maybe they're not. Well, 35 million job seekers visit LinkedIn Jobs every month. That's right. 35 million people explicitly looking for a job are on LinkedIn Jobs every month. You're only as good as your people. And speaking of great people, here's CMO Presh creating a job post on LinkedIn in minutes. And he posts his job and he creates some pre-screening questions, super important. And here we go. We're going to identify some preferred candidates, and he puts in a little bit of a budget, and then he can see how many people will be looking at the job posting, and LinkedIn auto-populates candidates they think might be a good fit. So they're getting better and better at this at LinkedIn in figuring out who to put your ad in front of for your job, and then telling you, hey, here are people who will be great candidates. So get $50 off your first job posting. Go to linkedin.com/twist. Get $50 a fitty from me, Jay Cal, and my friends at LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/twist. Again, linkedin.com/twist. and get $50 off your first job post. It's such a generous offer that, of course, terms and conditions do apply. Let's get back to this amazing podcast. What does New York think of this? Because I know New York was running some trials on, because there used to be laws about the minimum square footage of an apartment, which was 350 square feet or something. Now, they moved that down because those original laws, my understanding in my research was, those were so families didn't live in those 350 square feet, but those are being now have one person or two people in them, not a family. So now they're making micro apartments that are 200 square feet.
But those are residential. Remember, I'm attacking commercial. And so I don't have that same residency. Group housing is basically high density living in commercial spaces. So I'm taking like office use basically. And I'm saying these offices aren't performing and we have enough of them. Let's put housing in them if the ceilings are tall enough.
And then you just have to make sure they're safe, I guess.
Life safety. So 2 forms of exit, the fire sprinklers, fire separation walls. But that's all just money and time. But the question of time is, let's say you own a building and I want to put a pod share in it. Are you going to give me free rent for 10 months? Or am I going to have to pay you rent for 10 months? And then that's kind of the shitty thing because then I have to ask the city, why does it take 10 months to get a change of use? Now we get a bunch of them going at the same time and we have to get creative. Like, is there an existing tenant? Can we put something in there for 10 months that's in with the existing use just to pay the rent minimum? Is it not up to code? And you as a landlord have to need 10 months to get it up to code? Like all these scenarios give us buying time, but it's not
You
perfect.
have to get the change of use.
Yeah, but once we do, we're solid for decades.
Right. So you can get the city to say, this was a factory. I'm okay with changing the use to density.
Exactly.
Do the communities try and stop you, or do the communities like it because now, one of the big complaints in San Francisco was, well, where are the firefighters or the waiters, the teachers, the baristas, whoever, a cleaning person, where are they going to live and how far out do they have to live and how much suffering do they need to have?
So I think if the price point was affordable, they would support it. If it was, but as far as what I've gotten so far, the neighbors basically like them longer term. They're like, we'll support group housing, but you can't take away our parking, and we prefer it more on the longer term than the shorter term because we don't like Airbnbs. Essentially, all the neighbors have a thing against Airbnbs and the party houses. We have a law against it. I think either we passed or they're having Airbnb had a kind of a bad effect on the city.
So you're now making sure no parties at yours. If
No.
watch
10 p.m. quiet hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 10 p.m. quiet. Now, that doesn't mean you can't associate. Just basically go in the lounge or the TV room or the office or whatever and just talk phone calls. But just in the bedroom, it's 10 p.m. quiet hours and outside.
Lights go out.
Turn your phone to vibrate and whisper.
Got it. And have you tried to raise money for the business? I'm curious what people think. Investors, angel investors, real estate investors. Are they looking at this and going, that's too far out there? Or now you seem to have proven the model.
Finally. I think when I first started, they're like, oh, you only have 2 locations. Then like, you're only in one city. Oh, you only have this much inventory. So now I'm like 220 beds, 7 locations. Like, I don't really have much that people can say. I think the question now is like the size of the check, right? If we're going to go like big, like you're talking about New York and you're like, what's the laws in New York? I can't even tell you because I don't have lobbyists on the ground. But if we can hire great people to basically interpret what we've done in LA, it's a template essentially. How do we take this LA template and put it in your city or New York or Chicago, and it just takes more expensive people, let's say human capital, and which takes funding. So unless it was a large enough investment, I don't know if it really is going to make a difference.
What about large homes? I know that this has been a thing in college towns forever.
Yeah.
There's some 6-7 bedroom, like old mansion and, some fraternity or sorority or group housing, 6, 7, 8 people rent it, or maybe they have 2 people per room and it just gets, you can sort of utilize those old homes and instead
Victorian
of
homes.
Instead of having 2 people living in them, you could have 15.
USC does that a lot. Like around USC, there's tons of that. Kind of like what you guys do in SF. Yeah. There was a company called Campus that, kind of folded, but they had 20 homes, these Victorian homes, and they were divvying them up. It's interesting because the local co-living as you have today is really just property management in my eyes, because we've got this high barrier to entry with these commercial units, but they're just taking existing residential buildings, they're furnishing them, and they're playing roommate matchmaker with a non-annual lease. And that's basically what co-living is in like residential buildings. So is it possible? Yeah, absolutely. It still gives people flexibility to not do multiple months. You have month is the minimum. They can't even do the short term because they're not in commercial buildings. So that's another kicker. The reason why I could do group housing is 7 nights or longer or per night, depending on the zoning, is because I'm not in residential. Residential is meant for 30 days and over, and it's got density limits too. And that's the question. How many people can you legally, not what people are doing, like hacker houses, which are like kind of under the table.
The radar,
But if you're talking about legally investable, there's density. So If you're a family, you don't really have, it's non-related. As a single family home, non-related is 5 people.
Got it.
But multifamily would be
You
more.
don't allow kids, or you do? If somebody wants to have their son or daughter with them,
That's tricky, right? Because of like running
It does
around the
sound
stairs. So
tricky.
tiny homes, I think, would be the answer for that. I
Got
think that's where micro units for couples or professionals, and then tiny homes for families, and then pods for people, just like the boarding house, original use of coming into a city and making your way, not yet setting roots. Once you set roots, I'd love for you to set it in a pod share because you trust the brand. All your utilities are paid, like you have a fixed housing cost, and you can transfer across the network. So if you started dating someone and you want to go from the pod to a micro unit, you just pay the difference. You know, you upgrade. Oh, now you're single again, you downgrade. Oh, you're going to Bali. If we don't have a Bali location, you just don't pay for that month. So you got more money in your pocket versus an annual lease where you'd have to pay 2 rents. I think a housing membership is something no one is attacking, but it's an expensive idea.
Yeah. What is WeWork doing with their We Live?
Yeah.
Have you ever toured one or looked at it? And
It's in DC area. So they're $3,500 a month, which is a huge turnoff.
$3,500 a month?
That's really high.
Wait, that's what you would pay for your own apartment.
So why do it? And so
Yeah,
they
well,
closed it down for research just because it wasn't working. Star
They
City's
closed it down?
Yeah, a long time ago. This is like a year ago. Yeah, they were like, it just wasn't, We Live wasn't hitting because it's too expensive. But it's because, these ground up developments are, what is it, 400,000 to 500,000 per door for the developments.
Yeah.
But if you look at the stats, 40% of Americans cannot afford an emergency bill of $400 or more.
Yeah.
So there's a huge discrepancy. And so how are these people supposed to afford $3,500? Star City's $2,200. But again, they're more like small
What is
rooms.
Star City?
So Star City raised $20 million.
Oh, really?
And good for them. But they're more like real estate buildings versus commercial. We're the only ones doing like this commercial short-term and long-term thing. Everyone's doing 30 days and more. You probably know Common, General Assembly founder.
Oh, really?
It makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, you have all these students. Students need housing. I'm going to open Common, which not only for the students, for everybody, but super smart.
And how does Common work?
30 days or more, but I want to say it's 3 months. But don't quote me on that. And it is like $2,200 and up because it's private. It's that second tier. No one's doing this low, like first tier part. I don't know if they think it's too much work, which it is, or if they think there's not a market for it, which there is, but they're not touching it.
Yeah, see, I would have actually done this. I was a professional, though, in New York, but I think I might have done it. I certainly would have considered it if it was like we had screens, because I would want a screen.
Yeah.
And if it was maybe not co-ed.
Okay, you'd want male only?
I think so.
You know, in San Francisco, pod share is all men.
Is
and
it
it's
really?
not because of any reason other than San Francisco must be a male-heavy
I guess
city.
I went to boys' Catholic school alone. I just always thought like, in living space, and maybe it's just like I'm old now and have a weird view of the world, but I kind of thought like,
there's something nice about the co-ed. I remember this one story of a guy from Saudi Arabia. Actually, he was with us for 2 weeks. And at the end of it, he's like, I was sleeping across from a woman, which is like really no-no, obviously, in their country.
well, yeah, letting them drive.
So
Yeah.
that's what he said. He was like, it's really crazy because she'd drive herself to work and then she'd come home and she'd sleep. She'd cook herself dinner. And at the end of 2 weeks,
Crazy.
he's just like, isn't this ass backwards? Because I have to drive my mom to the grocery store. And what's interesting is maybe he goes and runs for office one day. Maybe he goes and votes in favor of women having.
So Mohammed bin Salim stayed at your MBS, stayed at your pod share. I think he rented out the Four Seasons actually in San Francisco when he came to town. He took over the entire Four Seasons. He didn't stay at a pod share.
No, we're definitely the low economy version.
What have you changed and evolved in the model over time? What have you learned in this grand experiment now with hundreds of, and you probably have had over 1,000 people stay in?
Yeah,
your place.
65,000
65,000 people have stayed at a pod share.
since 2012, and 19
What
people
have
got a
you
tattoo
learned?
of the logo.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's rewind for a second there. 19 people got a logo.
Pod share tattoo.
Do you have the logo as well?
I don't. I'm going to be 21. I just need one more person. You want to be it?
Wait. Oh, you're going to be the 21st, you're
That's
saying?
my lucky number, so.
Oh, okay. All right. No,
don't know where,
I'm good. No tattoos for me. My mom would kill me.
Yeah.
She's not into tattoos.
But they believe in the community and the Wanderlust concept so much that they've got this icon, which is a home and the share the road sign on top. So it's the top. So I got it from the floors of the city. Share the road for the bicycles.
Yeah.
And it basically doesn't say pod share, and it's just like this icon, but it's our
What
icon.
have you learned? And what have you tweaked in the model, evolved in the model
Good
about
question.
people living together?
I think people, because of economic reasons, are willing to give up certain liberties. And so that's one concept. Two, I think I love seeing the diversity of a pod share, and I think other people love it too. because really you got every single color, age, like size, everything under the roof at every location. What have I tweaked? The original pod share had drywall and like little space underneath the pod, and then we definitely started using wood because it's like feels like a cradle, like a baby cradle versus. And that's also my question about like shipping containers. I'm always like, I don't know about shipping containers because like when did we
They're
ever
horrible.
live in? Yeah, you know, when did we ever live in metal?
No, it turns out it's like people just think, oh, there's shipping containers everywhere, so that's the better model. It's like they're rusted, they're old, they're dented.
Yeah,
they are the worst for
like
doing
temperature?
any kind of temperature control because they bake in the sun.
Right?
And they get freezing cold because it's metal.
Yeah, versus
and if you want to put a
wood,
window, you need to weld
it out. I know.
It's so dumb. And the
dumb.
acoustics are terrible, and they're heavy and impossible to move without a crane.
Thank you. So the barrier of entry is even higher in those places than
It's dumb.
going to the lumber
That's
yard.
what, Blockable is making their, units in factories where it's 100% controlled, and you're much better building from the bottom up. In terms of the cost per door will probably be for Blockables. You were talking before, 400 or 500. Yeah. It'll be a fraction of that.
That's
like
amazing.
Maybe half or
and
a third.
And the time too, right?
Well, the time will be cut down by at least half or 2/3.
That's great.
Because when you build in a factory, you can build 24 hours a day in controlled conditions. Imagine you're building in the field.
Yeah.
And it's raining.
You have to,
or it's cold.
Stop.
Yeah.
City ordinances don't let you go past
because
like 8 or
you can't
7.
do it on the weekends.
Yeah,
you
and Sundays.
Can't do it before 7 a.m. You can't do it after 7 p.m. because people need to sleep.
Yeah.
But in a factory, you can go 24 hours a day.
That's great.
And there's no rain. And also if you're cutting materials in a factory, you can cut with special lasers and devices that are perfect. Whereas when you're cutting sheetrock in the field, as you've done, or plywood.
Yeah, I've just switched to plywood.
You know that it's not always going to be perfect when you cut it.
Nope.
And you put it up and go, got to cut another 1/4 inch off. Or, we got to get another piece and cut it again. Maybe we'll do something with this piece.
Exactly.
If you're doing it in a factory with a water cutter that's laser and you put a piece
like
of wood
CNC
in,
machine.
It does it perfectly.
Yeah, I've seen those. They're really great.
It's pretty amazing to watch what Blockable is doing. And then they can all, because they're perfect down to 1/100th of a centimeter.
Machine,
This is a machine, you could just snap them in place.
Amazing.
Click, click, click.
Amazing.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
No, that's great. I'd love to, like, that's what.
I'll introduce you to the founder.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting concept for you. I think you're probably like,
that would
operators,
though. I think we're operators. Like that's a construction company. I think for us, we're a brand. You know what I mean?
They're
like,
developers actually. They're doing the pod. They're doing their pod units essentially, and they're going to be the developers. So get the ground.
So who's going to operate them? Who's going to live in them?
Yeah, I think they're going to work with other developers to co-develop these. So they're going to be developers as well.
But not the operators.
I don't think they'll be operating.
But I think that's what Podshare. I think Podshare is like we do some construction because we want to like. It's
Your
like
dad did the construction, right?
The first one. And
your dad helped you build the first one, then you got professionals in there?
No, we do it. Me and the girls do it.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show you time lapse if you want.
Yeah. Oh, so you guys are literally...
The girls build it. Yeah.
The girls build it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Super. It's like chicks with drills, basically, just like making it happen.
Yeah. Founders use tons of tools at work, all kinds of hacks to make your business more effective, to make it crisper, and to make better decisions in your business. You're doing all these tools. Well, what about for yourself? What about job number 1, your health? Well, sleep is the most important thing for making great decisions in your life. You know this. When you have a bad night's sleep, what happens, huh? You're cranky, you make bad decisions, you're in a fog. Well, do what I'm doing. Use 8 Sleep. It is the greatest bed ever engineered, and it's engineered specifically to make you sleep better. I have the bed, I love it, and it's increased my energy levels and my mood's better, everything. I'm more productive, and you know what? I just spent a couple of weeks in LA doing business. I did not sleep as well. And I'm thinking, am I going to be that crazy guy who sends an 8 Sleep to like where I'm staying on vacation? I might become that guy. Oh, I got home, I got in that 8 Sleep, I set it nice and cool, and I got such a great night's sleep. And you know how I know I got a great night's sleep? Because I pull out the app and it tells me how many times I tossed, I turned, and all that kind of stuff. This product is the Tesla or the iPhone equivalent of a bed. It is so sophisticated, and it lets you wake up to a thermo alarm, which means you wake up naturally. It just changes the temperature ever so much, and you wake up nice and rested. So here is the call to action. I want you to try it for free for 100 days. And if you don't like it, you send it back. That's it. 8sleep.com/twist. EIGHTSLEEP.com/twist. 8sleep.com/twist. LinkedIn.com/twist. Supercharge your health and your productivity like I am doing. You are going to love it. 8 Sleep is an amazing product. I guarantee you're going to love this thing. And they guarantee it too. Try it for free. 100 days. You got nothing to lose. 8sleep.com/twist. You will love it. Okay, let's get back to this amazing podcast. Take no prisoners.
No,
Just
we just
boom,
build it.
done.
But it's like habitat for humanity because we live in them. So
Uh-huh.
we appreciate that. But to your point, that sounds really cool. And then definitely introduce us.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to them. What else have you learned
Right.
during this process?
I think like breaking up the payments really means a lot to people. Like I was telling you, the most heartbreaking thing is
Yeah.
people not being able to afford housing and what can we do? I put my money where my mouth is, right? So like one thing I dislike is when someone like has an idea and they put it on paper and then go try to raise money for it. Like I think that's a really bad thing we need to process. I think people need to like put their money into it. They put their sweat into it together, and then later later get money for it. I think people
Yeah.
jump into it too quickly and they're not like, so I'm not a technologist, so I cannot go build a website, but I can like fix a toilet. I can check people in. I can make sure that pods are built right. Like there are things that I can do from A to Z, and that's the business I want to get into. And that's what I've learned is like, I'm never going to enter a business where I don't know how to fix every single thing in there because I owe it to any future investors. I owe it to my customers. I just need to know and have not even control, but just the knowledge.
Yeah, if you know how it all works, even if you're just 60 or 70% as good of the people you can hire who are experts in that, like there might be somebody who's better at checking
Yeah.
people in or a better host
Yeah.
or somebody who's better at construction or better at the food in the kitchen. But if you know 60 or 70%, they can't snow you and you can speak their language. And if they
And they
leave...
respect you too, you know?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Man, when I'm with my team and I'm over there checking people and doing something, I feel like I'm getting respect versus, oh, go do this or go do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's important. I think a lot of founders aren't getting into, rolling their sleeves up and they're just going for money.
Yeah, I think bootstrapping and understanding your business means it's real. And
Yeah.
so I'm very interested to see how the venture community looks at what you're doing.
I wonder if they'll think we'll have a cap too much. Because one of the things that we were talking about was that they, with tech, you can put as many people on a server, but in a pod share, you're maxed out at, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, and the same is true for Ubers in a city, the number of rides or deliveries of food, it does not scale gracefully. Uber Eats or DoorDash is not like some easily scalable solution, getting you your hamburger
I think,
delivered.
Helped us in a way, but maybe didn't help us because they proved that a physical space was investable.
Yeah, we'll see how their IPO goes. But
Right.
yes, they are figuring out how to scale office space, and you are figuring out how to scale
Co-living space.
co-living. Parents must love you because getting your kids
Out of the house
is like becoming one of the hard things for millennials.
Yeah, affording housing.
Yeah.
And I want this to be known as housing and not, but it's bridge housing essentially right now
Yeah.
because they're moving into apartments. But if we had apartments in our inventory, then they could try and then buy with the Podshare model. So it all comes down to us as operators having more inventory.
Yeah. And how do you source a building?
Yeah, that's a really awesome question because thanks to like the CNN article that we were on, which I think what you guys saw, we've gotten tons of landlords reaching out to us being like, take my building, whether it's a residential like apartment building or take my hotel on like downtown. And that's how do we say yes to them all and just grow our inventory substantially? And then play with the tiers, like, okay, depending on what you pay, maybe you're $500 here, but you're $1,000 there. And I think that's where the question of, if we're limited because we're limited on capital, so therefore we're limited on time because basically money buys time, right? Buys people. And you could do more stuff with money. Then we have to pick and choose. We have to be a little more choosy. So the answer is I want Culver, WeHo, Santa Monica. I don't want Koreatown. I don't want downtown like maybe by Alameda. Like I have to pick and choose, but I could do it all and have like a crazy amount of pod shares all over the state.
You want to pick the ones that people desire and fit that mission. And
expensive
they're a little
places.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah, well, where you can't afford to live there. So meaning if outside you can get a place for $50 or $1,000, you're not going to choose Podshare. But so it has to be, let's say, $25. But then the question is, what kind of customers are you bringing in at $25 a night?
Yeah.
Per night range, but you could do monthlies, and then that's fine because it's ultimately $35 a night monthly. If you do $1,000 a month, it's about $35 a night,
which is pretty affordable. That is in most of the cities with $15 an hour minimum wage.
Right.
It's basically 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours of work
per night.
Gets you your housing. So if you were to work the 4th, 5th, 6th hour, you would have your food or whatever. And
Which is someone include that's like ramen in the fridge and there's
Yeah.
bagels and like cereals.
oh, you provide some food?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's why the joke was, and it's like for $1,200, you don't have to buy toilet paper and you get ramen in the fridge. That was one of like the comments, you know.
The
but
snark.
no, but really, yeah, the snark. But really, like you can live off of ramen. How many college people have?
Yeah, I did. I used to buy groceries when I was in college, and
It's a
then I would
non-fixed-
go from like capellini with sauce and cheese and butter to capellini with butter and cheese to capellini with butter to capellini with water sauce.
They should sponsor you.
And there was like moments when I was training for the marathon and I would make capellini and have no olive oil, butter or cheese or sauce left, and I would literally eat dry pasta, which is very hard to do, in fact.
On the teeth.
It's just a hard thing to just eat noodles with
All the
nothing
time.
on them.
Yeah.
With zero on them. No
Yeah.
butter, no olive oil, nothing. But that's sometimes you got to sacrifice in order
They
to
cook
get
a
where you
lot for
wanna
each other too. They'll give off the leftovers or they'll leave food behind. And like when you put a sharing economy thing, like all of our cubbies that we get free food, it's marked shared and people add to it. Like there's apples and leftovers and things that I did not put in there
Yeah.
that other people contribute because the mentality.
The homeless solution is so great. What you're doing, like it'd be so interesting to see if this worked.
We integrated 2 homeless people into the PodShare mix.
You did.
Because the kicker is not to tell you that he's homeless, because then you're going to look at him in a certain way.
Right.
But if you just take him for just a person that paid maybe the same as you, you'll totally feel like you're on the same playing field.
That's fascinating.
And that's also another point about not upcharging. Like if everyone pays the same amount for housing, like we're on the same, but it's more equitable. So anyway, this homeless person off of a local nonprofit was basically housed there. And at the end of the 2 weeks that we kind of housed him, sponsored him for, he basically said that it was a much more inspirational place, like meaning like it wasn't like everyone's down on their luck in the shelters, but here people like giving out resumes and like apartment hunting and like looking for work. And so he was also up and arms, like up and at it about like looking for stuff too.
Right. It was more inspiring to be there than to be at a homeless shelter where
Everyone's like depressed.
everybody is just barely above water.
Right.
Here you've got essentially, I'm assuming that the people who are in PodShare are strivers.
I would say they're independent for sure. They're looking for something. They're like, I'm a life coach, or I'm a marketer, or I'm a digital nomad. They created these terms for themselves and how they pay their rent. So yeah, they're very like independent and confident people, I feel like, or they're very curious people, like wanderlust, and they're just there to just explore our city.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So anyway, for the homeless population, I feel like it totally could work if you're not been homeless for a year, because maybe then comes a couple of struggles that like just from being on the streets.
Somebody
for a
could
while.
have a substance problem
Right.
or whatever. So no substances, no booze at the space, or
So it's cool, it's just
Have
like
a
just like at
six-pack?
home.
you can bring in a bottle of wine.
Yeah, yeah.
But don't get drunk.
Don't get drunk because then inebriation is against the terms of use.
Oh, being inebriated.
To the point where you're inconveniencing your roommates, absolutely. You have to have rules, and it's not even about male or female. I think like if you have anarchy in a housing or business, I mean, nobody wants to be there. No one wants to live there. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
work there. So rules are important as much as people can.
So a glass of wine, okay, but don't get inebriated.
Totally. And share,
Yeah.
please.
And share,
And
of
please
course.
share your bottle.
Please share
Because
your
come on,
bottle.
you're really going to finish that bottle?
No, definitely not going to finish the bottle. But no shots. Let's keep it to no shots. Just keep it. And you do like entertainment and stuff? You
Yeah, I
have
think
music and stuff?
Curation is an important piece, but you don't want to push it on people. I think some people like forced friendship is really strange to me. The floor plan's already like a nice way to meet new people. So in the yard at Venice, we host multiple times a month things for people to do in the community because it's great for the neighbors and also for the pod members. And they come and go. We have people that live in the vicinity of PodShare, but they like their Wi-Fi is PodShare. We had a PodShare marriage.
What?
Two PodShare marriages.
Wow.
They
So
met
people
there.
met each other.
And they got
there
married.
you go. So if you're looking for a spouse,
Yeah, not even just roommate. If you're looking for
could.
the love of your life,
it could happen on PodShare.
because it's co-ed.
Yes.
If you were in
I
at a
take it
male's
back.
house,
Yeah, I'm going to say it's okay to go co-ed. It's
Right?
actually, for young people, I think it's probably fine. Yeah, they're probably looking to meet people, and that's all good. What about theme ones? That actually, to me...
theme ones.
Well, I was just thinking, like, there are artist communes or
Mm-hmm.
artist retreats where artists are sponsored to go, live in upstate New York in one of 5 cottages and do art for a couple of
Yurts and
months
cool.
and yurts and whatnot. If you did one that was just for artists or one that was just for marketers or poets or musicians, like the PodShare for musicians would be crazy because everybody in there would be like, oh, there's a guitar and a piano here. Let's go write some songs. They
Yeah.
might form bands or something. But if it was the one for artists, they might collectively
But do you think
work
that
on art.
creates like that kills the diversity and also creates kind of like this is only white males? Like, could it be a slippery slope into only Asians and like
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think of
versus like, oh, whatever you're in, it's serendipitous. We're here right now. We're paying the same amount. Like,
a lot of time when there's cross-pollination is a thing, right? You were talking about collisions. Tony Hsieh talks a lot about that with his space. So there's collisions, right? So somebody who's a sculptor meeting a marketer.
could make a video.
Yeah,
you know?
meeting a videographer. Like
Yeah.
that could be very interesting. But also when a group of people are together and they have a shared interest, you know, that becomes like a scene and they
Yeah.
could then push each other to perform at higher levels. So like the music scene or the art scene in New York, like Andy Warhol's factory, or the music scene in Britain during the, you know, eras of, you know, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and stuff like that. They all kind of pushed each other a little bit. The New York folk scene
Yeah.
with Dylan and, you know, Joni Mitchell and all them, they all kind of leveled each other up.
Yeah.
So that it actually could work if you did a music only one or something like that.
I was
and I don't
wondering-
think it would create a diversity problem. It would just create a concentration of excellence.
While you were here, I wonder if that data, the pod map as we call it,
Yeah.
can show like how many musicians are in the space or in
Yeah.
all of the pod shares. So
Yeah.
maybe you go there to meet that person. Could be
Yeah,
the thing.
neat.
Becky was saying, what about floors? Like if you had like did have a bunch of like this is like
Yeah.
So
The music floor.
it could be. I just
poetry
wonder if my
floor.
occupancy would go down.
It
You know what I
It would
mean?
be hard to, you'd be
To fetch
limiting
these
the group.
specific
Yeah, you might be able
individuals.
to charge an extra $200 though for the music one if
Or
it's got a piano and
What
a
about
studio.
housing laws? I wonder if they're like that's discriminatory.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that you have to be a musician.
Just interest
Interest in music, yeah. So you could have that one could be $200 extra, and you could put a music studio in there so
Yeah.
people could record.
So we have it in Hollywood, and it's
Oh, you do?
included- Yeah, we're trying to like just like one price gets you everything, and if you want this, you go here. If you want that, you go there. Bicycles at each location. Like you have transportation, you have like
Yeah.
all of our computers have Adobe CC, so you can create
Oh,
be a
neat.
content creator. You know, just something simple like that. But we don't like advertise it. It's just like included in
Go
the
Chrome,
membership.
go Chrome boxes, and
Chrome
everybody can log
boxes.
in with
We have
their-
Roku's.
We have Roku, so that's great. And then everybody shares their Netflix.
Yes.
Or you have a house
we
network.
have we have pods. We have different accounts for
Oh,
Hulu,
very-
Netflix,
Spotify.
Pandora,
So
Spotify.
you don't even need to use your mom and dad's Spotify or Netflix anymore.
We got you.
All right.
All you have to do is
Nephew
share.
Nick, you can get off mom's Netflix now.
You
You can
just
stay
have
on
to
mom's
share.
Netflix forever. All right. Listen, Elvina Beck, CEO and co-founder and sheer force of will at Podshare. It's delightful to meet you and hear about this crazy project that is hitting scale
Yeah.
off of your grit and your sweat equity. Very impressive from one
you.
founder to another and an investor. It's very inspiring to see somebody just do it and
Yeah.
not give.
Wait for anybody. Just
Don't
knock it
wait.
out.
You're either creating or you're waiting, and you're a creator.
Yeah, producer or consumer. What are you?
Yeah, producer.
Yeah.
But I do a little consumption on the side.
I know.
All right.
I love a good beer.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.